Meeting to order. It's May 2nd, 2019. First item on the agenda is a motion to approve the minutes of the prior meeting, which was the meeting held on March 1st, 2019. Supervisor Garrity puts it forward, seconded by Supervisor Wild. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, minutes passed. Next item, we're going to change the agenda up a little bit. We're going to refer to the fifth item on our agenda, which is under referrals or pending items. This is a referral from the Environmental Concerns and Real Property Tax Services Committee regarding a local law to establish sustainable energy loan program, and I think that's part of our effort to become a clean energy community. And Supervisor Bramer, is there anything else you would like to add? We have a guest, and I'll introduce the guest in a minute. But is there anything else you would like to add?
Sure, thank you, Supervisor Strout. Yes, this is under our effort to become a clean energy community. You have to take 4 high-impact actions on the list of 10, and to offer the Energize New York Finance Program to our commercial properties in the county is one of the high-impact actions. And I looked at it, I also asked the county treasurer to look at it, as well as our real property director, because in the past there was an element that had to do with the county tax bills, but they have revamped the entire program, and now the county does not have any responsibility for administering the program. It will not be on the county tax bills. It's separate. It's run entirely separate. So in the past there was some concern about the municipality having a burden in that respect, but that is no longer the case. So I think that there's very little risk to the county, and it will offer our commercial property owners the ability to find financing for energy upgrades, not just for solar panels, but things like hot water tanks, improving windows, doors, insulation, that kind of thing. So I think it's a really good program that we will be able to offer to our business owners.
Okay, thank you, Supervisor Bramer. And we have a guest on our conference call, Mark Felking, the co-executive director of Energize New York. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we hear you fine.
Great.
Now, you've heard Supervisor Bramer. Is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Sure. Well, I'd just like to introduce myself. I'm the co-executive director of the Energy Improvement Corporation. We are better known as Energize New York. And the program that Supervisor Bramer was talking about is our Open CPACE program. Open CPACE is enabled through a law that was passed back about 10 years ago at the state level, which allows municipalities to provide financing for energy improvements to real property in the counties and cities of the state, and that financing is repaid, or I should say is secured through a municipal benefit lien that is applied to that property. What it allows for is a broad approach to improving our building stock throughout the state, much akin to how other services like water services, sewer improvements, sidewalk improvements, these are all enabled through state statute, which then is allowed for through local laws at the local level. This public benefit of PACE financing is administered in the same way. So with that, the way the Open CPACE program is administered is just like Supervisor Bramer was talking about. The Energy Improvement Corporation manages the program entirely for the county. There is no obligation to bill or collect the repayment process of these financings. There also is no obligation to enforce any non-payment. The process was created basically with many counties around the state providing comments and also advice as to how to administer the program. So we've completely removed any administrative, financial, or any other obligations of the county whatsoever in the administration of the program. We do it on your behalf. And that's just to reiterate, the Energy Improvement Corporation is a not-for-profit local development corporation. So we are controlled by municipalities around the state that wish to offer PACE financing. So the program, while it is authorized and enabled through a local law and is administered through an agreement between ourselves and the county, it is considered your program, and thus you have control over that program through our structure, because we are, again, a local development authority controlled by the municipalities that wish to offer PACE. So just to run through the benefits of PACE financing, because Open CPACE is not a bank loan, it is a public benefit. The opportunity is there to pay for up to 100% of the cost of the improvements. The financing is paired with those improvements, thus it automatically transfers to new owners if the property is sold. Because again, it is secured by a benefit assessment lien. That assessment lien then allows for longer terms than would normally be available through the normal commercial loan market. So a lot of these improvements that we want to see in our building stock, which amount to pretty long investments, whether it's a boiler or insulation or renewable energy, many of these have longer terms to them, thus the financing is available now through Open CPACE to pair off against that. And then really just the only other aspect that I'd like to bring forth is the fact that we already have 10 capital providers from around the country that are willing to provide capital here in New York State based on the Open CPACE model. We find that it's actually increasing quite a bit of attention on New York State, and thus there is quite a bit of capital that is now being allocated to Open CPACE here in New York from areas of the country that had Open CPACE projects already enabled. So that is that's the program in a nutshell. I know I didn't have a lot of time, but there may be questions.
I have one question, and yeah, other supervisors do as well. So, Mark, when you say we do it on your behalf, in other words, you remove all county obligations in reference to this financing package. So when you say we, you're referring to Energize New York?
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions by other supervisors in the committee? Yes.
In general terms, what would an interest rate be in today's marketplace, would you guess?
So we have about a dozen projects that are already in more or less beginning stages around the state, and they range between the high 5s to the low 7s. Again, it depends on the credit quality of the borrower. It also depends on the term of the financing, but that's the general range of interest rates.
Okay, and just a second question. Are we talking about, and you maybe mentioned this in general terms, we're talking about private lenders, private parties, who, in terms of the organizations that are actually generating the cash to finance these programs? Is it, are they basically, would it be a local bank? Would that be something that would be involved in the process?
Potentially, the types of capital providers that we've seen have expertise in redevelopment and in energy financing, and those are the ones that tend to provide a very efficient and also low-cost financing tool for the municipalities and their constituents. That's not to say that there would be an opportunity for a local financial institution to participate. We do have a request for qualifications that would need to be followed if that were the case. But we've seen that many of these capital providers that are coming to provide these capital are extremely confident in helping the property owner move forward with these projects, and many of them are very complex. So not to say that it couldn't happen at the local level at all, but the ones that are already participating are delivering some very big and very complex projects to our communities.
Great, thank you.
Yes, Supervisor Leggett?
Thank you. If Warren County as a municipality adopts this local law, I take it that all towns within the county are covered by this as well. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes. All entities that do not have lien authority would be covered. So the City of Glens Falls would have their own, and they're already a member of EIC. They have to pass the new local law for open C-PACE, but that is correct. All the towns would be covered and villages.
There you go, then. You'll have to ask if you can take credit for that action in Chester.
Any other questions from committee members at this time? Yes, Vice Weil.
Mike Wild from Queensbury. I'm curious, how many counties have already signed up for this? And the corollary to that is, are any holding back, and why?
So we just launched the Open C-PACE product literally at the beginning of April. We have over, I'd say, a dozen municipalities now are moving forward with setting their public hearing and voting on it. The County of Rockland is voting on their public hearing next week. The local law next week. Nassau County is setting their hearing on Monday. We have a bunch of cities around the state that are also moving forward. So it's a little early to say that there has been any hesitation, but I don't think there will be. We haven't heard any yet. And as I mentioned earlier in the call, we did a very thorough vetting of not only the local law, but the agreement with a bunch of municipalities to make sure that this fits them. And the fact that we've removed all obligations. So there's no collection and enforcement responsibilities. There's no backstop or financial obligations at all for the county. There's no underwriting responsibilities. There's no fees. It's truly I think one county official called it a fully funded, non-mandate that is being provided to counties to source more capital in a way that is materially important, especially for redevelopment and bringing our building stock up to really where it should be from the standpoint of energy costs. So there's been no objection yet, and I don't think there will be, but it is early.
Thanks,
Follow-up question?
Yeah, just to follow up. Whenever I hear something that sounds too good to be true, I tend to have more questions than answers, right? So I'm just wondering where the downside is and who that might fall on. Is it from the capital providers? Is it from the people that are taking out the loans that, maybe their terms are much longer than the improvements are really going to provide the benefits for? So I'm sure you guys have looked at various risks. Where do they lie?
Well, speaking on the qualifications of the projects themselves, NYSERDA, which is New York State's energy office, has issued guidelines as it relates to what qualifies for PACE. So the project must go through an energy audit or a feasibility study if it's a renewable energy project, and those measures are required. And then from the measures themselves, there's a pre-approved list of measures that NYSERDA has published, as well as if it's a very comprehensive project, there's a cost-benefit ratio test that need to be applied to each project. So from the standpoint of the actual measures themselves, there is a regulatory guidance process that NYSERDA has adopted and that we're following. From the standpoint of the financial risk, the capital providers are taking that risk. So they, again, if there is a non-payment on a repayment, and that is then converts over into a default, the process would be that the capital provider first has to pay off all the outstanding taxes on the property to clear the municipality from any claims on the property, and then that capital provider would then have the option to foreclose, assuming that the mortgage bank beneath them doesn't want to foreclose in front of them. So the risks are really on that capital provider to make sure that these properties are viable from the standpoint of repaying this financing. And just to the question about the stated life, there is a very specific rule, actually in Article 5L, which is the state statute, that wouldn't allow us to finance a project that has a life longer, shorter, I should say, than the term of the financing. So the financing always has to be shorter than the average weighted life of the improvement.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay, Administrator Moore?
I have a couple of questions. Thanks for being here. For the board's information, and I think you just answered it. The scenario that I know that counties in the past have been worried about is if a company decides to walk away from their property, there's a lien attached to their property for these improvements to be paid off, and then the property falls behind in taxes. Where does that leave the county if the county takes title to the property? Does the county now have the responsibility to pay off the lien? And I think you answered that question by stating that the lender would make the county whole so that the county's not in that position. Is that correct?
So let me just rephrase the question so I understand it correctly, and then correct me if I got it wrong. If the property is delinquent on their tax bill, but not delinquent on their paid repayment, the property then would be subject to a municipal lien, which then the capital provider would then have to clear if they wanted to continue to receive payments from that property. So they would have to step in, or the mortgage bank beneath the PACE lien holder would have to step in to clear the municipal claim on the property. Is that the question?
Can I jump in? If you don't mind, Chairman?
Don't do it.
I think my understanding is that if someone just completely walked away and they weren't making their payments on this or their county taxes, we could foreclose on it. And in the event that we take the property and we are unable to sell it at auction, we would be responsible for the continued payments of the C-PACE. That's only, though, if the capital provider does not step in to redeem their property, which they probably would. They have an investment in this, so they probably would. The other thing that I understand from the county treasurer, and maybe he can speak to that, is that if it is a commercial property with investments of this nature, which have been vetted through NYSERDA, it's going to be an easy property to sell at auction, and we will be able to recoup the money that we need to pay, and then once we sell it, those payments are the obligation of the new owner.
Correct.
So I ran through those scenarios, and I felt like the county's risk, there is some, but that it would fall on us after all those steps seems very low risk.
Which I think is important for the board to know.
Right.
My other question, you mentioned that this is a local development corporation controlled by the municipalities that participate. Does that mean we get directorships on the LDC board? What exactly does that mean?
So we have an annual meeting that votes on a rolling set of board seats. And those rolling sets of board seats are available to our membership. Currently, many of them are populated by the board board members that have did financings in the previous program that is now closed. But every end of March, early April timeframe, there is 3 seats that are up, and those are available for our membership.
Okay. Is there, I assume it's under the not-for-profit corporation law, and there's a distinction between who the members of the corporation are and who the directors of the corporation are. Do you know who the members are?
The members are municipalities that have passed the local law and signed our EIC municipal agreement.
Okay, thanks.
Supervisor Leggett, did you have a question? Any other committee member have a question? Any other supervisor in the audience? Yes.
I'm not sure I understand the public role here. Why couldn't they just do this privately? Why do they need us? And that would be one question. The money's being provided privately. It's being provided through the not-for-profit. What is our role in this? That's one question. The other question I have is, are they the only provider? Are they a preferred provider? They mentioned Nucerta. Are there other LLCs that are also in this industry? Those types of questions.
Mark, could you hear those two questions?
Yeah, I think I did. So I think the first question was related to why is the municipality involved? And Article 5L of the state general municipal law gives municipalities the right to provide this public benefit, but it's only municipalities that have that right. There's no other entity that can provide the public benefit of open seat-based financing. So while EIC, the Energy Improvement Corporation, has taken a lot of the responsibilities of managing this program, in fact, all of the responsibilities of managing this public benefit off the responsibility of the municipality, it still is a codified benefit that is, again, allowed for by Article 5L and then reiterated in the local law and then administered through the municipal agreement. There's no other entity that can authorize this public benefit. And then from the standpoint of the Energy Improvement Corporation, we were created to provide an outlet for a municipality to provide this public benefit in a low-cost, no-cost format. We're funded by New York State Energy Office in Serta to create this shared service enterprise so that the county wouldn't have to build up their own infrastructure to provide the public benefit on their own. So in theory, the county could develop their own LDC or their own structure, but this avoids that extra time and cost that the county would have to do. And just for example, New York City is developing their own infrastructure, but New York City is like almost a state unto itself. So they're not using us; they're using their own entity.
Follow-up, Chairman Conover?
So the corporation was created by Nucerta to perform this function, and the authority to do this is vested in the municipal law. So that's why the approval of the municipality is required. But for that, you could not operate within that municipality. You could not do this way within the municipality. Do I have that about right?
That's right. Although we were created by municipalities, we're just funded by Nucerta. So our founding municipality was actually a township in Westchester, because towns in Westchester are actually a taxing authority. They needed this shared service enterprise to exist because they didn't have the capacity to build it out. The state decided that this should be actually available to all municipalities that have lien authority. That's how we expanded.
I see. So you're founded by an original municipality. The funding you send, you're funded by Nucerta. What funding would that be?
So we have grant funding that funds our operation.
Are those allocated annually, or are they?
We have a 3-year commitment as of this point, starting actually in January, to continue to operate Open CPACE and all the benefits that accrue from that for the benefit of the state. And that's following on another contract we had prior to that to continue to build out the PACE product. We were founded in 2011. We didn't start funding projects though until 2015 under the old program, and at the end of 2017 we started to build out what was essentially turned into an open CPACE product where there was no more responsibilities for the municipalities to administer. So that product launched in, again, April. That's why we're rolling this out today.
Yes, Supervisor Wild?
Yeah, Mark, sorry, one quick one, hopefully it's just a yes or no, but my understanding is that there's many grants that are available through NYSERDA for some of these programs. Does participation in the CPACE program preclude you from being involved in grants, or is it just a supplemental?
No, I mean, for projects that are eligible for NYSERDA funding, that is encouraged. And in fact, we are very close to many of those programs, and we advise that property owners make sure that they make themselves available to use those grants to lower the cost of the project.
Okay. Any other questions from supervisors? Questions from community members?
Thank you. I was wondering whether you have already or intend to register with the authority's budget office And if so, would then report your financials annually using the Paris system?
We are we are registered, and we have all those on our website. We're required to report annually about all of our activities, and it's all there. It's on our website.
Any other questions from community members? All right, back to supervisors. Supervisor Bramer.
I'm going to make a motion that we move it to the full board to pass this local law.
All right, motion made by Supervisor Bramer to bring this high-impact action, one of four that the county needs, to become a clean energy community. And this is so a CPACE financing program that will provide funding for energy upgrades to buildings. And we've discussed the county's obligations, and we've discussed Energy New York's role. And is there a second to this motion? A second made by Supervisor Leggett. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll put this to a vote. All those in favor of moving this to the Board of Supervisors, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? All right.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Good to speak with you all.
All right, thank you, Mark.
Okay, bye. He's gone.
I think he did.
I did.
All right, then let's go back to the beginning. And the beginning includes 6 items that were sent to us by other counties. And, you know, I asked Clerk of the Board, Alan, about this, and she says that she puts them on the agenda as the county's request that we consider these. And do I want them removed? Because that was my option, and I said, no, I think the committee should deal with these 6 items that were sent to us by other counties. So let's take a look at them one at a time. So first one, Orange County asked us to consider their situation, their point of view, I should say, in reference to fentanyl analogs. All right, so fentanyl analogs are drugs that are designed to act and behave like fentanyl. However, according to Orange County, these drugs are not controlled substances. So what they're asking is that since this is a health issue, and since the fentanyl analogs act like a dangerous drug, fentanyl, and can be just as dangerous, that, you know, we support their effort to ask the state to amend New York State Public Health Law and include these items, these fentanyl analogs, as controlled substances. All right, discussion. Yes, Supervisor
Thank you,
Driscoll.
Mr. Chairman. In this is my 17th month on the board. I guess I'm unfamiliar with this process, so I guess I'm asking for a Reader's Digest version of kind of an update on this. Is this kind of like a legislative letter of support or endorsement that you're going along with the particular municipality?
Yes, it would, if this committee supports moving this to the Board of Supervisors, a resolution that would be made very similar to what Orange County's has in your record, only it'd be personalized to make it Warren County's version, which says that we support amending the New York State Health Law to include fentanyl analogs as controlled substances, that we would support that. So you would have a vote on this again when it came to the Board of Supervisors if the committee wants to forward it in that direction. Any further thought on that? All right, Supervisor Bramer?
I'm just reading through Orange County's resolution, and they have the number of people that have died from opioid drugs in their county. So I'm wondering to myself, do we have that number, and have we talked to the sheriff, and does our public health department have any input on this resolution? I myself do not know what fentanyl analog drugs are.
Don't either.
I think if you look, there is a little bit of a verbal description in the resolution there in the 3rd paragraph, whereas fentanyl, a prescription opiate painkiller, the little I know about it, I know fentanyl is typically imported from China. It is extremely toxic, extremely strong, and very small and almost insignificant amounts of fentanyl added to the opiate process. I mean, it's death, instant death. It's a serious issue nationally, and so that's the only thing I know about.
I get that, but I don't know what the fentanyl analogs are. Do they have are they all illegal? Are they
Aligning it with federal reg, Code of Federal Regulations, Section 1308.
They're looking for a definition of more illicit drugs, right? Is that what they're asking for?
Yeah,
To include,
that's the way I feel.
to include more drugs.
Supervisor Hogan?
So moving, do we have the street, the generic or the basic name of any of the examples of what a fentanyl analog would be? And it's my understanding that moving them into this category restricts the people who can prescribe them. So I would suggest that maybe we hear from somebody who could speak to what that restriction impacts on our community might be. Maybe somebody from Bucking Headwaters or Hospital or something.
Any other supervisor outside the committee wish to speak to this? Any member of the public? Supervisor McGowan?
Yeah, just quickly just snipe on a Google. Fentanyl and its analogs are commonly, named as synthetic opiates. But I do have a client of mine who actually is a doctor in in helping people with opiate addictions and that, and we can look into it further. But from what I'm understanding of it is that it's derivatives that are non-addictive but help alter the mind in thinking that to help the cravings and that, so you can get off of the drugs. So, but I'd be more than happy to ask her if she'd want to come in and speak to us on that. She's quite knowledgeable on it.
What I'm seeing and hearing from the committee is we'd like more information on this topic before we made any move. Is that right? So I'm seeing the nodding heads for a consensus. Yes, Supervisor McGowan, so I think that'd be great to have somebody that knows more than we do, which would be easy, to educate us on this matter. Supervisor Wild?
Thank you. Just really quickly, I'm reading through this, and it is covered under the federal drug enforcement agency. So I'm wondering, why do we have to replicate what's already covered?
Good question.
No answer.
I don't have one. All right. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It does seem as if this is just a request to align state law with federal law pursuant to 21 CFR section 1308. So that there's no gap. I wish the undersheriff was here. He's gone to several workshops on fentanyl and heroin-related topics. Tell us a little bit more about this.
All right. Well, we'll put this on hold. What's that? Okay. And Supervisor McGowan will try and get an authority here to enlighten us at the next Legislative Rules Committee. All right, thank you. Next item comes from Orleans County. Orleans County is a resolve that opposes Assembly Bill A 1413. That is a bill that is prohibiting firearms as prizes in any game of chance. So this is a bill that's prohibiting that. Instead, in other terms, they like it the way it is, that you can offer firearms as prizes in games of chance. So there is a bill before the Assembly, I guess, 1413, that is wants to prohibit offering of firearms as prizes in any game of chance. Discussion? Yes, Supervisor McDivitt?
Again, you start reading these resolutions and you, when you know just 1% of what the issue is about, it becomes a little difficult. But 1, 2, 3, the fourth paragraph, or the third paragraph, whereas New York State has already eliminated the bake sale of Mom's Apple Pie as a possible form of fundraising for fire departments and charitable organizations. I mean, what in God's name are we talking about here? So I guess my take on it after reading that is I would probably support the firemen. You know.
Well, I can tell you what they're talking about.
Supervisor McGowan?
You can't have bake sales anymore. Anything baked has to be done in a commercial kitchen.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Yeah, the nonprofit group.
your cupcakes at home and bring them to a bake sale, you're violating the law. And I'm not sure, I mean, we do get a chance on occasion.
Mhm.
I didn't know that, you know, we don't give out prizes like that. But I don't think they should restrict the rules. I mean, this is an assembly bill, right?
Yes, it is Assembly.
Supervisor McGowan?
Yeah, I actually, when I first read this and I heard about it, I was kind of really misinformed. It was presented a little bit differently, so I actually read into it. And I am just like, I did end up signing up and sending to the State Assembly opposing this bill. The fact that we have so many other more important things, and you're worried about grandma's homemade pie, and and firearms, and actually I was thinking it was moonshine apple pie they were giving away because it was also had liquor in here. You know, it's like these are fundraisers for organizations that are trying to, that would take care of, Ducks Unlimited, the 4-H, which does wonderful things. I mean, all these other things, and then you read into it further. I mean, firehouses and stuff, and that raise all these different monies for charitable things, and I think they have too much time on their hands. They got to think, this is an important issue that New York State needs to get on, and that's what I stated in my return. I am just dumbfounded. I mean, how many years has this gone on that, but especially people say, well, firearms, because most of the New York State Assembly people that this bill was drawn up with are all down in the New York City area. So it doesn't make sense to me up here.
So are you supporting the opposition to the bill?
I'm supporting the bill. I oppose it.
Okay. Supervisor Leggett?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a rather impassioned resolution from a county legislator by the legislature. Thank goodness we have a board of supervisors. So, the addition to the general municipal law is where it says right now, no alcoholic beverage shall be offered or given as a prize in any game of chance. Says no alcoholic beverage or firearm, as defined in section 265 of the penal law, shall be offered. And when you look up that, a firearm means any pistol or revolver or shotgun having one or more barrels less than 18 inches in length, rifle having one or more barrels less than 16 inches in length, any weapon made from a shotgun or rifle, whether by alteration, modification, so on, less than 26 inches, or an assault weapon. So Those are what qualify as a firearm. I don't know how, regular rifles fit into all this and such, but I do agree. I think it's at the discretion of the raffling entity of what type of firearm they're going to put up for public consumption, and therefore opposed.
So you're favoring the opposition to the Assembly bill?
Yes.
Supervisor...
With better language.
Supervisor Driscoll?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A few years ago, St. Mary St. Alphonsus did the same thing. They raffled off a rifle as part of their annual fundraiser. I bought some raffle tickets, so rather than be a hypocrite, I will also voice my opposition to this. This is a different discussion of gun control, in my opinion.
Yeah, Supervisor Wild and then Supervisor...
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The only thing that I have an issue with is because there's no mention of, are they just giving it away to anyone on the street, or are there full background checks and the like? So as long as there's full background checks and everybody has a full knowledge of who's getting this firearm.
Yeah, it
I
says
can
that
support it.
in the resolution that they do the background checks.
Okay.
Supervisor McGowan?
Yeah, no, I'm familiar with this type of thing, and I have been on the recipient end of receiving some of these in fundraisers. And you have to go through a background check, and if it's a pistol, you better be carrying a pistol permit, or you won't be picking that up either. So, but no, they just don't hand it to you and say, hey, you won, And it's the same with the alcohol. I've seen with alcohol, they have to prove that they're the age of 21 to walk out. So, I mean, the laws still stand there. It's just a way of raising money.
Okay, Supervisor Diamond, did you have...
I didn't have any comments.
Okay. Yes.
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Simpson?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say that there's a lot of good organizations that benefit by these gun raffles. We have the shooting sports through Cornell Cooperative. That they have their banquet every year. The Friends of the NRA, they turn around, they use those monies to educate, grant back to clubs so that we can do proper gun handling. I urge the committee to please oppose this resolution.
Okay, Supervisor Breimer?
Thank you. This resolution does not say that people go through a background check. I was not sure if someone could just win a shotgun at a raffle and walk home with it that night. I've never been to such a thing, but I understand there are charitable organizations here that do that, so I contacted our county administrator and asked for information from the sheriff, and he said that is the required process. If you hand it off to someone, that is illegal. You have to make them go through the background check. I am okay with opposing this, but I would not vote for it in this form. The language in here is...
Terrible.
Thank you. I think if we could come up with something, I'm sure our staff can come up with an appropriate, strongly worded resolution opposing the current bill and adding language that says we know that there are background checks, and doing that without a background check is illegal.
Is there, I don't know if there's a time limit on this, and when it's going before the Assembly for a vote. I mean, if we make a resolution to have the administration draft something for our further consideration to have at a future meeting, and it might be too late. Supervisor Lega?
There are no votes for this bill in this legislative session.
Oh, okay, so there's no... So, is that something administration would be willing to do? Is there
Sure.
something that seems to be more in line with...
Do we want that to come back to committee, or do you want to just give us parameters to draft the resolution? I mean, we could have a resolved paragraph in there regarding background checks, and then we can...
You're going to send it out before the board meeting?
Sure.
Sure.
I'm fine with that.
Sure, please
All
do.
right. Is there a motion to move that forward in the way it was just described? Supervisor Garrity and Supervisor McGowan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? All right, it passes. Next item, from Essex County, support of snowmobiling and increasing snowmobile trail miles in the Adirondack Park. Discussion.
Should we bring it to the floor?
Well, you can if you want to, I've been allowing a little bit of discussion previously to see if there's any interest to bring it to the floor, and then I'll allow it, but if you want to bring it to the floor, that's prerogative, you can come forward. Any discussion? Supervisor Dickinson?
I'll bring it to the floor.
All right, brought to the floor, seconded by Supervisor Leggett. All those in favor of supporting this resolution only will be worded in a more appropriate manner to represent Warren County's interests. Supervisor Bramer?
I just have a comment. I'm going to vote no. There was some discussion of this at Intercounty, and I believe they tabled it. It doesn't say what they're asking for as a cap, and my understanding is that their DEC is nowhere near the mileage cap anyway, so I'm not sure what they're asking for or what the concern is. I mean, yes, we all realize that snowmobile usage, especially in Lake George, is great for our tourism, but
I take it as a generic support. Yeah, no details, but Supervisor Simpson?
Mr. Chairman, we talked about this at the review board after the had passed the resolution. I missed the original meeting, and then we talked about it at AATV, and I would ask the committee to maybe hold off on this. We've had discussions about defining exactly what we're reflecting, and address some of the issues that Supervisor Kramer has brought up, how many miles we're looking for. So, otherwise, it's just a generic. We all support more snowmobiling trails in the Adirondacks, but we'd like to refine it a little bit.
And what's the will of the committee? Who put this forward? Supervisor Dickinson, and seconded by Mr. Leggett.
We're willing to table it.
Do you want me to put it to a vote, or?
No, we're willing to table it.
All right, we'll table it. Anything else we need to do to assure that? Okay, let's table number 3. Number 4 comes from Madison County. It wants the New York State government, governor, and the New York State legislature to address the lack of cellular phone coverage, and I thought that we've done this. Didn't we have a resolution that already did this?
Yes.
Because, and it was, we supported, especially in rural areas and so forth. Didn't we already do this? I think we did too.
Local government, we did this and that, right? The cell service, we've done numerous resolutions.
Yeah. All right, so it's a moot point, then we'll move on then. Because I got to get out of here at noon. I got a birthday party at noon, and I'm the center of attraction. All right, so.
happy birthday.
Well, happy birthday, yeah.
All right, so let's move on to Tioga County. They would like the state to fund the costs associated with the recently passed voting reforms.
I'll make a motion, we move this forward.
All right, moved by Supervisor Garrity, seconded by Supervisor Bramer. Any further discussion in the committee or outside the committee?
Kind of like a unfunded state mandate.
Yes, it is. Just another one. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, any nays? All right, passes. The last one, Schuyler County, Seneca County, and Tioga County opposing New York Senate Bill 1947 related to hours, wages, supplements, and contracts for public work. In other words, anybody receiving state money or state breaks, tax breaks like from IDAs, will have to pay prevailing wages and benefits in accord with the other things that our municipal communities force our contractors to do. So this is a resolution from 3 counties opposing the New York State Senate bill related to the hours, wages, and supplements in contracts for public work. Discussion? Seeing none, any motion?
So move it.
Move forward to Supervisor Leggett. Any second on this for moving this resolution in Warren County style to the Board of Supervisors for their consideration? Seconded by Supervisor Dickinson. All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays?
Nay.
All right, 1 nay by Supervisor Bramer. Resolution passes. All right, next item is a discussion, and I'm sure it's going to be one of many, and I'm sure it's going to be on the next Legislative and Rules Committee. I don't think we'll come to a conclusion today, but let's have this discussion on redistribution of sales tax revenues in Warren County. We've had this discussion before. Administrator Moore gave an excellent presentation on the matter, showing it from all angles and directions that you could possibly imagine. And so further discussion was asked that the Legislative and Rules Committee have a further discussion, so there's where we are. Anybody like to go first? Yeah, Supervisor
Mr. Chairman,
Wild.
I'll go first, so maybe you can get out of here before noon.
Good.
I look at this from my business perspective, and I couldn't ever support this without understanding the consequences. We're talking about a shift in tax burden to our tourism-centric communities, and I'm wondering what the effect that will have on them. So I'd like to see some ideas in terms of, if we increase the tax rate at someplace like the Sagamore, what's that going to do to their business? What might that do to other hotel and commercial establishments along the lake? Secondly, when I hear that we should support this because 80% of the population wins and only 20% lose, I think that's somewhat of a simplistic view at this, because the fact that we don't know what it's going to do to our economy and how much are we going to win. So if I look at the town of Queensbury, the majority of our tax bills are school-related, not county and town taxes. So if the town of Queensbury is one of the so-called winners, how much does each taxpayer win? Is it $100? Is it $200? And when I say taxpayer, I don't mean resident, I mean household. Because when I had children at home, my kids didn't pay the taxes, but they were counted as residents. So what's the impact on the individual taxpayer for some of this? I need some more information before I can go further in terms of my analysis and my decision in terms of how to vote on this.
All right, thank you, Supervisor Wells. Supervisor Bramer?
I appreciate your position. I think we do need additional information. To me, though, it's not nothing that 80% of the population is going to benefit by a change. I mean, where I'm coming from is, if you look at the tax burden, this is from our administrator's presentation, the tax levy on the city of Glens Falls is $13 million, and that's not including the school taxes, which we all know in Glens Falls are very high. We are being strangled by taxes, and it's been a problem that's increased over the last 20 years, since 30 years, since whenever this system was set in place, and the tourism population centers, their assessed values are going up, and meanwhile Glens Falls and other areas are going down, but we have more of the population. If you look in the report that we just got, the population is moving out of those really rural areas, so that problem is going to continue. In my mind, I understand there are other people here with homes in areas where their taxes will go up, but people in Glens Falls have been suffering for years and years and years, and we have all of these services that are available to everyone in the county, i.e. the hospital, the Hyde, every single, okay, not every single, but a lot of our health-based services are in Glens Falls and in Queensbury. You have the mall, you have the outlets, all of those areas are in Glens Falls and Queensbury. So I am looking for some sort of solution. I would like 80% of the sales tax to go based on population, 100%. But I'd be willing to look at 50-50, because I think that is, like Administrator Moore says in his presentation, it brings the gap closer together so that we do not have these giant differences between the communities that are getting all of the sales tax money and the communities that aren't. I want to reiterate again, we in Glens Falls are strangled by taxes. I understand there are other areas that are having problems too. What can we do about it then? We need to have this discussion. This is only the first time we as supervisors have actually gotten to discuss this. And this is only one committee. It's not even every single supervisor.
All right, Supervisor Garrity, and then Wild, and then...
I'm willing to listen to any compromise. My problem in my community is I don't have a lake, and the lake I have is owned by the town. Can't make any more land, and my values are at 100%, they have been, and my people suffer just like everybody else. Most of them are year-round. I'm willing to listen to anything. One of the things that chokes me off is I have county facilities in my town, which I benefit from people coming in. Like I said before, there's $20 million worth of county and state facilities in my town. They're exempt from property taxes. So my assessed value is not going to grow hardly at all unless I get some business, which is very difficult where we're located and where we are now. But I'm willing to listen to anything. 50-50 was just something that was thrown out by somebody, but I just need some help. I need some help because I have $20 million worth of exempt properties in my community that are owned by the state of New York and Warren County. And we struggle a little bit with that. And I'm happy that I get those hundreds of people that come in my community every day, like I stated before. I'm happy they come in, I'm happy they buy gas, hopefully they buy gas in my community and they eat lunch there. I'm happy about that, but it doesn't add to my tax base. And when you own a lakefront, those tax bases are jumping up astronomically. And when you have a lakefront community with a high value, I get that, but with a 75% town tax or a 50-cent town tax, and I'm paying $359, $362 in a town tax, people don't understand. People living in a community like Warrensburg don't understand why our town tax rate is $362. You live on a lakefront and you're paying 50 cents, 60 cents per thousand. It's hard for me to explain to them. Although we do all right, and our community is doing fine. It's very, very hard when you speak to sales tax. If you sit in my chair and try to explain to somebody why your rate's $362 and how come we'll use Horkin. I used to get this from Ralph all the time. My tax rate's 75 cents. Well, it's hard to explain that. So, but I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to listen if I can get some help.
Okay, thank you, Supervisor Garrity. Supervisor Wild was next, and then Supervisor McDevitt, and then Supervisor
Chairman, thank you.
Mallon.
Just a couple of other things as I look for information to help make my decision. It's come to my understanding that there's different services that are provided by the different municipalities. So we have to factor that into the equation of tax rates. And just food for thought, if I'm not mistaken, the tax cap was basically made permanent by the state. And my sense is they did that to, and I know I'm at large, right? So I don't know what it's like to run a town or a village, right? But in my mind, that was set to help those of us that do have those responsibilities sharpen your pencils and make it happen. And again, I'm still open to discussion on this, but I need more information before I can go. Anecdotally, I understand that Warrensburg is hurting, that Luzerne is hurting, that Lake George and Bolton are doing great. I understand that from the surface, but we need to dig into this because there's consequences to a move like this.
Oh, absolutely.
And those consequences are what I need to understand before I can vote yes or no.
Thank you. Supervisor McDevitt.
I recently attended a citizen seminar in my ward at Jackson Heights Elementary School. Approximately 25 people attended. Collins, who represents the city in my ward, was at it also. If there was one overriding expression and need expressed, primarily females, widows, people that are, I started talking about county issues. They don't want to talk about county issues. They said, Peter, we are choking on property taxes. Peter, we are choking on our water bill. And Peter, do something about it. Well, you know what Peter can do about it? Not a whole lot, okay? So, but that's the need, that's the desire expressed by the average property owner that lives in the ward that I represent. So Kevin says, I need some help. Well, Peter needs some help too, you know? So the taxpayers of Ward 2 in the city of Glens Falls, they need some help. They need some relief.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor McGowan?
Yeah, when I saw this coming up, I started getting on the phone, and I have I've talked to everybody, and I've also talked to our administrator, who really put a wonderful presentation together, which really made it simple to understand with 4 or 5 different scenarios. And however it's going to work out, somebody's got to take a hit, I would like to see a supervisor workshop on this where we can just schedule the time so everybody, because I'm an at-large, as Mike stated. But I mean, the people that run the town, I understand where everybody is coming from. The problem is, in order to do this, from my understanding, the city is taking a stance to be exempt. And really, for anything to move forward and work, the city would have to pull from that exemption, if I'm correct, so we can change the laws, and then we'll need 2/3 of the floor's vote to get it down to assembly to change everything. This is a complicated and enduring process of trying to work together, but we need the big heads here because we need to work as a team, and nobody wants to give up nobody wants to give up anything, but yet the underdogs need a little bit more, and in all fairness, I really think that we should all be able to get together as adults and supervisors in that, and really come up with a solution so every town can be a little happier. I don't think we're far off, but there will have to be some changes, and if it's brought up in a process where there's a small percentage every year for so many years, so, everybody, so it's not an initial hit, but I'm sure we can come to some grips.
Okay, Supervisor Bramer and then Supervisor Conover.
Thanks. I want to touch base on what Supervisor Garrity said about the tax rate. I mean, you're talking about 75 cents tax rate in certain municipalities, and Glens Falls is looking at $13. I mean, so I know that an increase is going to hurt some people, but we're already slammed. So, and I do appreciate your comment about working together as a team. I think there is, and Supervisor Hogan says this, let's not fight over the scraps. But there's a way that we can make this so that we equitably move some money. Yes, some people are going to end up paying more, but if we can close that gap a little bit over time, your idea of, maybe changing it over a 5-year period of time, and yes, we're going to need the city council to buy into this. But I think that there are some communities that they get their tax rate is so low, and they get so much sales tax money, correct me if I'm wrong, they return it back to the county to lower their county tax rate. They have more than enough, and we're here, begging for the scraps. So I think a workshop makes sense, but we've got to figure out some formula to help
All right,
balance
Supervisor
that money
Bramer,
around.
Conover was next, and then Fraser, did you have your hand up? All right. That's a no? All right, then Leggett, then Simpson, then Hogan.
Yeah,
Uh,
listen,
Conover.
I'm here representing Bolton relative to Warren County government, the services and products that Warren County government provides. That's why I'm here. I'm not elected to represent any municipal budget. I'm not here elected to represent any school budget. I'm here to represent the Warren County tax levy. Now, our tax levy is based upon what's called fair share, and our fair share is based on assessed value. And that's how we pay the bills. And the moment you distribute revenue, not on a proportional basis, you're raising someone's tax levy beyond their fair share to some other number and lowering others. Now, as the lake communities have grown, the percentage of the county levy, and that's what we're here to discuss, the county tax levy, the county tax levy on others has declined. Now, Mr. Moore's table shows dramatically since 1970. Glens Falls, for example, share of the county levy has dropped from 28 or 29% to 8.9%. Not because your valuation declined, but ours went up so much. Now, in today's dollars, on $45 million, you tell me what that 20% represents. It's a big number. Others went down as well. Warrensburg went down. Almost, I guess, I don't know what, a full point on $45 million. That's how the fair share formula works. Now, to you, those of you that have advanced ideas to be incorporated into the county budget, those ideas have been incorporated into the county budget, whether it be Pool Center or Eastfield, or the Warrensburg Sewer Project, or whatever. And when those are approved within our budget, Bolton pays its fair share, just as all of you do, based on our assessed value basis. That's how it works. Now, I think that there is a lot of apples and oranges and grapefruits being all mixed together here. And I think that when you look at this, and if you're going to change the fair share formula to something else, then what you're saying then is that if you're going to move the population, is that Bolton or Horton or any of these other communities, your fair share based on assessed value is not enough. Right now, those 6 small communities pay over half the county levy. Half the county levy. One proposal would raise us to almost 80% of the county levy. It would drop Warrensburg to almost zero. It would put Glens Falls into the black. How do you make money on a county levy? How do you make money on any levy? When you start to be so arbitrary and you start to apply all of these kinds of things, you don't need to turn our tax structure on its head. If you have a proposal that helps to benefit your community, advance it. That's the correct way. And if we incorporate it and make it part of the county levy, then all of us will pay our fair share. Queensbury will pay their 34% of that cost. Bolton will pay its 16% of that cost, and so on down the line. Now, I've said this, my position on this, and it's not going to change. I'm not in favor of any change that increases or reduces any community above or beyond its fair share. That's my position. If you have a mousetrap that can accomplish something without doing that, without increasing or decreasing anyone's fair share formula, I'm all ears. But what you're looking to do is to basically reach in and take revenue out of a municipality utilizing county government and draft it into your municipal or your school district. I'm opposed to that. I'm opposed to that. Now, I don't know a lot about a lot, but I know a little bit about public finance and county government. And I can tell you that if you come to the table with these issues, you better be prepared to discuss it. You better be prepared to discuss it in extensive detail. Because you think the Bolton is going to stand by and have our tax rate raised from 16.4% to 28%. You're delusional. That's not going to happen. So, I think that, you really need to revisit Mr. Moore's presentation, and you really need to understand how you benefit under the fair share formula. That's what you need to do.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Conover. Next is Supervisor Leggett, and then Simpson, then Hogan, and then Dickinson. So, Supervisor Leggett?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll keep it short for you here. Thanks to County Administrator for putting together a very good PowerPoint presentation that we all benefited from, that gave out the facts and the fundamentals. And on this discussion, we should stick with the fundamentals. The 3% sales tax was allowed the county to raise to offset county expenses. And then along the line, part of the revenue that was raised by that levy was redistributed back to the towns and offsets the town's levy. Still all based proportionately on assessed value. This all comes, the county levy and our town levies are based on assessed value. I think the system that is in place is appropriate, and because it is based on those fundamentals, and it should stay that way. We bringing in the arguments about school districts and their costs on constituents muddies the water on things. That's something to be brought up within school districts themselves, and not to be satisfied with some sort of sales tax reapportionment. As it is now, Chester provides 7.33% on slide 25 here. Glens Falls provides to the county 2.14% of the levy. So we're pulling over 3.5 times contribution to the county than Glens Falls is at this point in time, our small community. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Supervisor Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Horkin was mentioned in comparison to the town of Warrensburg, and just so that we hear the other side of that equation, the population in Horkin is 1,300 people. We contribute approximately $2.8 million to the county levy. Warrensburg has a population of 4,000 people that contribute approximately 1.4 million. So I would beg to differ with some of the opinions that have expressed here, that how much more do you want to tax the people that are paying the bigger share, their fair share in the county? I have people in my town that are paying $25,000. They're only here 3 months a year, don't have any services. We don't have sidewalks. I mean, I don't have a downtown. We have to go to everybody else's community to do anything because the businesses are located there. Now, don't get me wrong, I am not diminishing this issue. I do think we need to do something for the city. We need to rethink, but I don't think it's going to work by increasing the taxes on the people that are paying the bigger share now. They're paying more than their fair share. Assessed value is a number that equalizes the expense across government. Now, if you use that against somebody to increase your revenue, you're going to distort this, and I would assume that Horton's assessed value will go down, which will have a bigger negative impact for the other communities.
And that's what I'm hearing from a lot of supervisors is if you're going to look at redistributing the revenue, then let's take a look at redistributing the apportionment. That you've got to look at both sides because they're the same coin. And so if you move forward and you do that, I'm hearing that you need to look at both sides. So, and then when you're all said and done, I don't know where you're going to land. But next is Supervisor Hogan.
Maybe I'm living in the land of esoteric a little too much here. I'm hearing a lot about how we tax, how we distribute. I haven't heard one single person address why. Why? Why do we? Why? And I don't know the answer. I'm just throwing it out there. But maybe we need to start there so we're coming from the same basic assumption.
Okay. Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Dickinson?
Been so long, I forgot my question. I have to agree wholeheartedly, Mr. Chairman, with what you said. I think that's the essence of the issue here. For me, it's agreeing with what Craig said, and it's agreeing with what Ron said, and it agrees with what Matt is saying. You know, you need to pay the bills like you collect the money. You can't mix and match those two. It's unfair. And truthfully, my suggestion is, and I agree that some people have to, I have trouble in my town balancing the budget. It's a real struggle for me. We don't have that many people, and other than the lakefront property, we have people in the hinterlands of Lake George that are in real trouble. So it's a real mixed bag. But I again will say that if you want to solve this problem and you want to do it with sales tax, I think you need to go down and level the playing field with Warren, Washington, and Saratoga County with the other 57 counties in the state of New York. They're all 8%. Pick up another 1%, you're talking $16 million. 17 million. Get the new money. Don't touch the old money.
Out of that $17 million of new money, $8 million gets redistributed back to the towns. The other $8 million becomes the counties, becomes part of the county coffers. We're just doing the math. You could simply take a portion of that, apply it towards debt service, pay down your debt, and you can work through a budget where every town in the community gains a significant amount of money. You pay down the debt at the county level, and you also appropriate monies for capital projects, such as the one that Mayor Blaze would like to see, and a capital project which would ensure the stability and long-term stability of the pool insurance arena. And you could also appropriate money for Mr. Conover's project for infrastructure, generally for Warren County. And Dennis, I looked at this back in 2015. I've looked at this again. This is the only way that you're going to see these small little communities survive. It's the only way to do it. There's 3 counties in New York State that are not at 4%. We're collecting 3%, New York State collects 4%. It may be time to have that discussion. There are no losers on the subject matter. You're all winners on the subject matter. So I agree with your thoughts.
Okay, Supervisor Weil?
Mr. Chairman, thanks. I know you need to leave, but Supervisor Hogan asked why, and it was kind of leading into the question I have. Because of the discussion we have about tax rates and everything else, we need to think back about why is there a city, town, village tax? It's to cover the costs of maintaining and operating that municipality. And those costs get divided by the number of taxpayers. So, comparing the tax rate with Glens Falls to Mr. Chairman's tax rate in Bolton, I don't think is fair. Because what you've done is, as a municipality, is decided these are the services that you want, and therefore, taxpayers, you have to pay for them. So if your tax rate is too high, the easiest way to do that is to reduce some of your services. It shouldn't be the county's responsibility to support what the city of Glens Falls or the town of Warrensburg or some of the other towns want to do for their own specific municipality. It's up to the town or that municipality and their taxpayers. I don't see any other way that works, because that's the way taxes are defined.
All right, well, maybe it's time to open this up to the public, because
I just have one comment.
We're repeating what we said.
I need to answer one comment. Okay?
Okay.
First off, the sewer project in the town of Warrensburg was not a town of Warrensburg sewer project. Sewer project was set up for Countryside Adult Home, which is owned by Warren County. Warrensburg got involved in the sewer project because we offered to pay $50,000 to do the engineering study for the sewer project. So it's a county project. It's not to benefit the town of Warrensburg. It's to benefit Warren County and Countryside Adult Home. That was the whole idea behind the sewer project. I just want to clarify, I'm sick of hearing it's a Warrensburg sewer project. It is not. It's a Warren County sewer project.
Okay, thank you. Let's open this to get some opinions of the public. Sir, would you identify yourself and speak at the microphone?
Yes.
Mike, come on, man.
I probably don't need the microphone, but
Well,
is it on?
Yes.
yes,
Oh, okay.
they needed to
Yes.
better hear you. Yes, sir, and your name
It's on.
is?
Jeff Clark.
Jeff Clark.
I represent a small family business in Brant Lake, housekeeping cottages. It's been in my wife's family for 75 years. And right now, my wife and her brother run the business. I'm part of the hired help. I can't tell you how much I get paid. It's embarrassing. But we bring in 35 to 40 families in our small business every season. We've extended the season as best we can, but right now, we all work to pay the taxes. Not much left over at the end of the season for us, but we love it. It's been in the family. As I said, my wife grew up there. I've been going up there for a long time, and an increase in the taxes could kill us. I mean, again, we all bust our butts from April through September or October, basically just to pay the taxes. So again, a significant tax increase would very likely force us out of business. And the people that come in, they buy food, they buy gas, they buy toys, they buy all sorts of things, they go out to dinner. So from a revenue standpoint, they're coming in and they're paying sales taxes, and they're generating money that circulates within the community. So there are a lot of businesses in what I think is our range. And, you know, I think that's one of the consequences that's been mentioned that needs to be looked at. What would it do to that sort of level of business, and how would it hurt us, and what would the negative ramifications be?
All right, thank you, Mr. Clark. Yes, ma'am?
My name is Joan Caruso. I'm just an individual that lives on the lake. And we are burdened and strangled with all kinds of taxes. We have our Brant Lake taxes. We have our income taxes. We are responsible for cleaning up the invasive species in the lake. That doesn't come out of the taxes. So please, don't act like we're not strangled. We're all strangled with taxes. We have to come up with something fair. I don't know what that is, but I'm for it. But just help everybody.
Thank you. Yes, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to address the group.
And your name, sir?
My name is Rudy Ronco. I have a home at Brant Lake. I'd like to echo the comments made by the previous speakers. I have a question. How long has the existing sales tax distribution formula been in effect? Do we know that? Is it long-term, 30 years, 20 years, 10?
It's been in effect since the city of Glens Falls preempted. In Glens Falls gets what they get in sales tax because the city made a decision to keep 50% of the tax generated within the city. And by virtue of Glens Falls doing that, the distribution formula kicks in for the rest of the county.
What year was that, roughly?
I think, I don't recall exactly. It was almost from the beginning when the sales tax was created, late 60s.
Okay, so I had a small home at Brant Lake. I'm 81 years old. I worked until I was 79 years old to make improvements at that location. And I did it on the basis of recognizing my taxes would go up, but they were manageable. if suddenly the rules of the game after 40 years or longer, or 50 years, change, that's completely unfair. We operated under a certain discipline, and we think that ought to continue. Otherly, there are a lot of suggestions here about other ways to ameliorate the problems of the other towns. I have worked in the area of public finance for many, many years, and clearly one of the notions that was made here is if your taxes are too high, one approach to it is to reduce the spending. And that's one problem that can be done in many cases. That's not the case in a place like Horicon, where there are only 1,500 residents, and there's very little, I think, that gets wasted or spent there unnecessarily. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other member of the public? Seeing none, Supervisor Bramer?
I thank the public for coming. I do appreciate your comments and your concern for the rest of the communities in the county. I want to go back to what Mr. Wild said, and it kind of touches on Supervisor Conover's point too about we shouldn't be letting certain municipalities go into the black or use this money to offset their own budgets, and maybe we should just cut expenses. Well, what's happening right now is the sales tax money that's distributed to the municipalities is getting plopped into their town budgets, reducing their town tax levy. Supervisor Leggett said that. So I'm not talking about raising the county tax levy. If we take some of the sales tax money away from the towns, okay, that's what I'm proposing, then the town tax rate will have to go up. You will have to look at your own town and reduce your own expenses. Well, guess what? What the gentleman just said is, those towns are using their money as efficiently as possible. We can't squeeze any more money out of the towns. I get that. But we have to figure out something, and maybe it is increasing the sales tax percentage. I don't necessarily support that, but at least we know it would be across the board.
All right. We're
Just, if you allow me, that needs to be responded to. The sales tax that municipalities bring into their municipalities, like the city of Glens Falls, the sales tax would otherwise go against the county levy. It's a dollar for dollar. It's a dollar for dollar a movement of the dollars. What that means is, Bolton's county tax levy is $7 million. We can apply the sales tax against our $7 million levy, or we can take it whole or in part, get into our municipal budget. But our county levy stays at that $7 million. The fact that our municipal tax went down is just that's where we choose to do it. Just like the city of Glens Falls chose to preempt so that those dollars came into your municipal budget. It's no different than what you do in Glens Falls. And one other thing that needs to be added as a matter of fact. The manner in which this is done is prescribed by state law. The moment Glens Falls preempted, and Ryan, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, the moment Glens Falls preempted, there's certain sections of the state sales tax law kicked in.
so
Yes. So my point is, it's not as you say it is. It is exactly what's done in Glens Falls, and it is no more. It does not add one penny less to our county levy. Our county levy stays exactly where it is.
And it won't increase the county levy either, to move it around.
The moment you take
All right.
revenue, it doesn't
Well-
matter what revenue it is. It could be building permit revenue. The moment you take that revenue and not share it, it doesn't fall proportionately. You're increasing someone's share of the levy and decreasing someone else's share of the levy. It doesn't have to be sales tax. It can be any revenue that comes to Warren County.
we're not going to, now if I was to gather a consensus today, what I'm hearing in terms of the majority is that we keep the situation the way it is. That's what I'm hearing from the majority. Now, if you want to have further discussion on that, I think we have to narrow it down. Were there 5 scenarios that you put forward?
I can recirculate those scenarios, yes.
So we could take a look at those scenarios and then discuss them one at a time and set aside a meeting where this would be the only item of discussion at the Legislative and Rules Committee, or do you have another thought? That's my thought now, is that we're not getting anywhere where we are now. If I was to say the consensus appears to be to keep it the same as it is, right? But I also feel the need for further discussion.
Can we look at the 1% sales tax increase seriously?
Yes, I can put that in.
All right, so let's make that the main topic of discussion at the Legislative and Rules Committee. We will take a look at the 1% sales tax increase and the impacts of that and have that discussion. Yes, Supervisor Simpson, this is going to be short.
1 second. The other option that is fair, that's indisputable, is leave all those tax dollars at the county where they would remain, which means Glens Falls and every other town, and then we wouldn't be revisiting this down the road, trying to figure out how we're going to change a tax structure that has been in place for a long time. The other option, you could reduce the county tax proportionally to each town related to how much they're receiving in sales tax.
All right,
And
well,
there's no redistribution.
all right, there were many good ideas expressed today. I didn't think that we'd come to any conclusion, so I'm not shocked that we didn't.
One more comment, Mr. Chairman. I know it's about 9 minutes after 12.
And they're wondering
I
why
have something else to do. Happy birthday.
Thank you. Move to adjourn, Chairman Dickinson, seconded by Supervisor Garrity. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye. All right, we're adjourned.